This is EB3, Speaking the Truth in Love, and I just come on for a few minutes to give you guys a word of encouragement and a food for thought. And this is going to be part 2 of me telling you some of my journey on my job. If you like this video and you want more content like it, like, subscribe, drop a comment, and share. So, on the first video, I told you about when I first went to the shipyard as an apprentice student worker. And my first encounter with basically a little sexism and a little racism. But I want to tell you this story right here, because this story right here changed my view on some things. Like when I was growing up, even though I encountered some racism, because, you know, being in Mississippi, growing up in Mississippi, you as a black person, you're gonna face it. But a lot of times it's like a little bit like under the surface, you know what I'm saying? Because the Southern charm is real, but you just have to know the codes, right? So I remember by this time I've been in the shipyard a couple of years, and I have learned how to do several things. And one of the covenant jobs as a marine electrician where I work is being in hookup. And so by now I've been in hookup, but it's time for me to get rotated, because remember on the other video I told you guys that as an apprentice you go to school, but you also have to get rotated to different areas so you can have an overall view of what it's like to become a first class electrician. So by now it's time for me to get rotated. So I go to this, the first foreman I had was a white man, and then he loaned me out for a little while to another white man, but they didn't treat me bad. I mean, even though the first day I was like kind of worried about it, but they really didn't treat me bad. The foremen themselves, the leaders themselves, they really didn't treat me bad. They actually treated me pretty well and taught me a lot of things that I needed to know, right? So the third one, the very first one, introduced me to the third supervisor, right, which was a lady. I love her. Like, even to this day, I feel like she's like my shipyard mom. We went through some stress. I might tell y'all about that, but we went through some stuff, but mainly because of misunderstanding, because, you know, being a black woman, especially back then in those positions, there was a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure on us now as black women in these positions, and as black men as well. But anyway, so by now I've been in her crew for like 9 months, and it was like 3 months over. By now I have to be transferred because you're only supposed to stay in one spot for 6 months. So I go to this other crew and I meet this guy. I'm going to change his name. I'm going to say his name was Robert. Now, there is a Robert that's in the shipyard, but I want to make it clear, anybody that works with me, I'm not talking about that person. The people that know, they know, right? But I'm just going to call him Robert. So I could tell when I come in his crew that just by looking at the crew and knowing where some of them were from, I knew that this was going to be different than my other experiences. But I'm going to go in it with an open mind, because at the end of the day, it's a work environment. And I'm not one of those people that's just going to be complaining about every little thing somebody say to me or do to me, because I know how it worked, especially back then. If you do that, now you're the problem. If you go in an environment and you complain about every little thing, now you're the problem. And so when you really have a real problem, nobody's going to pay you any attention, and you might end up being the one losing your job. So I always kept that in the back of my mind, because by now I've been there like 1.5 years, and I know how things kind of work, right? So it comes every month. Apprentice has to be evaluated, right? So it comes time for evaluation. But when I got transferred, it was like right before evaluation. So if you get transferred right before, it's time for you to get evaluated. The last person that you work for has to evaluate you and then send it to the person that you're working for at that time. Y'all go over it and you sign. You disagree or you don't agree. If you disagree, you write your statement. But either way, you got to acknowledge that you had a discussion about it. So he looked at now keep in mind I hadn't been in his crew a whole week yet. So I haven't been there long enough to either do extremely good or extremely bad because I haven't been there long. So he looked at me, he looked up and down at me like this and said, come on in. And then he said, well, I wanted to show you that your last boss gave you a high eval, but from what I can see, don't expect that here. And I'm just thinking like, what in the world? You know, in my mind, I was trying to figure out what have I done in 2 days? What can I have done so bad in 2 days that will make you automatically say that I'm not going to get a high mark? Like, I didn't expect to get the highest because it is something a little bit different. Not a whole lot different from the first crew I was in, but it is like a different area that I have to learn and, you know, stuff like that. So I just said, okay. And I asked him, I said, well, why do you say that? And he said, well, I see you got all these high marks, but I can tell that you're not going to make it over here like that. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, so before I even get here good, I don't know if he was, because I don't know exactly what he was thinking. But the only thing I can think is because I look so different from everybody else in the crew. I'm the only woman again. And it was one black guy there, but even he didn't seem like he didn't have too much to do with me either. I don't know if maybe they had a bad experience with another woman. I don't know. I never did figure that out. Except for the fact, I'm going to tell you the rest of the story. So I said, okay, because at this point, I could just tell that this conversation is going to go in the wrong direction, and then I'm going to end up being in trouble. So I just said, okay, I'll keep that in mind. And, but I'll be honest now, I did say it with an attitude because I did have a little chip on these little shoulders back then. So, I sign my eval, go on by my way, go back to my work area. And I noticed every day it was like always something. Like the way we work is like compartments, because you got to build compartments, because each compartment has different bills in it. Each compartment has stuff that you got to complete, and you got to complete it at a certain length of time, right? Just say you might have one compartment where you got to complete in 2 days because it's so small, but you might have another compartment that it's going to take you 2 months to build because it's so big, or sometimes 6 months. It just depends on what area of the ship you have, right? So he would come into compartments and like, I'm over there doing whatever he's told me to do. I'm over there doing it. He would walk by people just standing in groups of threes, talking. Walk by them. Now, we all work for him. Walk by them. Don't say nothing to them. And come to me and ask me, why is it taking me so long to do my job? And I ain't gonna lie, y'all. Me being the smart mouth I used to be, I would say something like, it's gonna take me as long as it's gonna take. And I'll look at the other folks. And then he'll be like, well, I need you to hurry up because you taking too long. And I used to be thinking like, I'm taking too long, but they're not even doing anything, you know. But I wouldn't even say that because I'm not like a snitch or nothing like that. So I didn't want to say, but them guys over there ain't doing that. But why you saying something to me? So this just, it went on and on. And it started escalating to the point till there was this other supervisor, black guy. God bless his soul. He was a good guy. He would come through there, go into his office, and he would kind of hear stuff going on. So one day he stopped me. He says, it seems like Robert maybe don't want you in his crew. I know, and he says, I know he has a problem with some things. Would you mind if I go in and maybe swap you? Because he had a woman working for his crew. And he thought, well, maybe because this particular woman was white, he might treat her a little bit better. That's what he thought. He was trying to resolve the situation for us. He didn't have a problem with the other woman. He said the woman was a good worker, so he felt like, that might be a better fit. White man, white woman, black man, black woman, right? Well, the problem wasn't just my skin color. The problem was he did not want a woman to work. He agreed with it. He agreed with the swap. But he eventually started doing that woman the same way he did me, which got him in trouble because where I didn't go turn him in, she did. So, long story short, to this day, I can only assume that he had a problem with me being a black woman. I don't know. But years later, after I become a foreman, which is a front line manager, I'm a second line manager now, I'm a general foreman. But when I become a foreman, and he still to this day, up until he retired, he didn't like people that looked like me. It was just in him. Now, he was more tolerable by now because he had to be. Because the rules and the regulations are different from what they were back then. Back then, a lot of managers can say whatever they want to say, and all you had to do is you just take it. If you bow back up at them or something like that, they can write you up easier. They can fire you easier. If you got a good union representative, then you might be okay. But a lot of times, the person that's not even the aggressor end up losing their job. But anyway, he got reprimanded, he got cut back, but not because I told on him, but because the white woman told him, because I just didn't. And I remember a lot of days I was feeling so bad because I didn't realize I was going through a medical situation. And I remember he got on to me because I was in the restroom too long. And I had a medical emergency while I was in his crew. And he had no sympathy whatsoever. It's just amazing how different he treated me. I mean, he really treated me bad. It's more stuff that goes along with this, but he treated me pretty bad. He talked to me pretty bad. Now, I will admit, sometimes I did snap back at him because I can do that sometimes, especially back then. But I was trying to learn how to control my temper, and because I knew at the end of the day, you're in an environment where everything you say can and will is almost like being in front of law enforcement. Everything you say can and will be used against you if you go up there in front of the kangaroo court. The kangaroo court is when you're in trouble and you got to go before the board, and they're going to decide whether they're going to write you up, give you some kind of probationary thing, lay you off for a couple of days, or just terminate you. So I always try to do everything I could to keep from being in front of those folks because I don't want them kind of troubles. I want to leave, whenever I leave any situation, I want to leave on good terms, because you just never know. Even if you don't have to go back to that particular job, you never know somebody on that job that you left. If you left in good standing, you may meet them somewhere else again, and you may need that relationship again. So anyway, what do you think about this? How would you have handled it? Especially for the ones that are like in my age group, because I know from being in management now, I know that the millennials might take a little bit, but them Gen Zs, they ain't taking nothing. they ain't putting up with that stuff that we put up with back in the day. And you know what? To be honest, I don't even blame them, because we have paved the ways where they don't have to put up with a lot of things that we put up with. That's one of the things that concerns me a lot. What's going on in the country right now with the elections and stuff. Not just the presidential election, but the gubernatorial elections, the Senate and the federal and state. They want to take. There's a group of people, and I don't think it's all Republicans, and I think it's even some Democrats. They want to take us back to a place where only the elite has any rights. And when I'm talking about elites or white men, and we really need to think about that. We really need to think about what's going on. And when I say that, I'm not saying every white man is like that. And I think a lot of white women is like that, but they don't even understand that whatever affects one minority is going to affect another minority. And some of them don't get it. I think it's praying time. If you know the word of prayer, I think we need to pray and figure out what we really need to do before this November the 5th. Anyway, tell me what you think. Be blessed, be a blessing, and I am out.